put the tall guys on the other side.
That's right, balance it out a little bit.
Balance it out.
We just passed the NASA reauthorization bill in the Commerce Committee unanimously without a single dissenting vote. And in saying that, my part in this is to say that this is a committee which really works on a bipartisan basis. We put out more nominations than any other committee. We do our work. I think because it starts with the extraordinarily good relationship between Kay Bailey Hutchinson as the ranking member and myself. We work seamlessly on all issues. This was a very controversial issue, the NASA bill. It started out with people angry on both sides. It ended up with absolutely everybody voting for it, and everything else on the docket, which also had some controversial things. So I just want to say that my role here as chairman of the committee is simply to praise the possibilities of bipartisanship. When bipartisanship works, then it starts with, I think, the ranking member and myself, Senator Hutchinson and myself, and then it goes on through the rest of the committee, and it goes through the staff, and all of a sudden people are negotiating. We're doing that now with the FAA bill with incredible success. That should be really ready very, very shortly. And it's just I sing in praise of bipartisanship. It really works, and it's allowed us to give a really good NASA bill, to give it to Barbara Mikulski in her Appropriations Subcommittee, where I think she feels pretty good about it. So I would now introduce the ranking member, Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson.
I want to thank Chairman Rockefeller first and foremost, because I agree with what he said about our committee. We have tackled some of the toughest issues in this Congress, and we've been able to do it in a way that everyone comes together because we have the same goal, and we have been able to produce some very complicated legislation. And I think today is probably the biggest test that we have had, and I could not be more pleased with the result than I am, because it is right for America. And I was very concerned, as I was pretty open about, with the President's proposal on space exploration. I have no doubt that the President wants to have humans in space and keep American preeminence. But I was very concerned that we were taking away NASA's role and the importance of NASA oversight and the incredible workforce that NASA has had through the years that has produced the creativity and the successes that we have had in space exploration. We have added to our economy, we have added to our national security with our commitment to manned spacecraft and the space station that is now being built. And I was concerned that our way forward was being jeopardized. The bill that we put out of committee today does preserve our workforce, our creativity, and the commitment to humans in space. It will allow us to fully utilize the space station. This is a $100 billion investment that our country has made for science and health research. Now we have the commitment for a heavy launch vehicle that will take humans into both low Earth orbit, and then the next step, which I agree with President Obama, should be our goal. We should go to Mars. We should know what is beyond low Earth orbit that we can use to harness energy for use in our country, to make sure that we have the health research that will affect every person's quality of life in our country. This can be done in space if we fully utilize the space station, and the bill that we passed today will assure that. I am very also concerned that we work constructively with commercial space operators, but not turn over the entire NASA program to as yet untested companies that would not have the expertise that we have built in NASA through the years. I think we have created a balance in which commercial is going to be very important, and it will be transitional. Down the road, perhaps, commercial will have the capabilities to take over the main components of space exploration. But we're not there yet. And it is too big a risk, and particularly with the space station at risk, to not have the balance with the NASA full contingent working on the science, the research, and the capability to get into space with the knowledge that we have already invested in. So I am very happy that we have been able to come to this. And in addition to the chairman of the committee, with whom I work so well, and his leadership has been essential in this, the chairman of the NASA subcommittee, along with his ranking member, has been essential. Bill Nelson has been a leader in space since he came to the United States Senate, having been the only member of the Senate sitting today that has been into space as an astronaut. And his commitment is clear, and I think he put his commitment above anything else, that we would have manned spacecraft for America, that we would have a heavy launch vehicle, that we would preserve our scientific capabilities, and that we would use commercial in a transitional way that would lead us forward. So I thank Bill Nelson for his leadership, and we've been chairman and ranking member of the Space Subcommittee, both, and have always had the same goal and been able to work things out. And this was the biggest test of our capability to do that, and Bill Nelson came through with flying colors. I want to just mention every other person who is on this podium. Senator Lemieux from Florida, very helpful in saying that the original proposal was not right, but going forward, helping in that effort. Senator Vitter, the chairman, the ranking member of the subcommittee, did a great job. The senators from Utah, the senators from Alabama, Senator Wicker on our committee, along with Senator Cochran, Senator Boxer on our committee, all contributed greatly to this final product, along with Senator Warner from Virginia and Senator Webb and Senator Feinstein. So it's really been a collaborative effort to assure that we were doing the right thing for America by coming together on the goal. Thank you, and I would like for Senator Nelson to
Senator Nelson, then Senator Vitter, then Senator Hatch, then Senator Bennett.
Thank you, Chairman.
A few weeks ago, centrifugal force was completely disrupting the process of trying to achieve a NASA bill, and especially one that would chart the course for human exploration in space. So it's somewhat of a miracle that we have been able to achieve the unanimity in this consensus, including the White House, which will be issuing a statement today of support. It's a miracle, but I believe in miracles. And I'll be available for any questions on the specifics that you have.
I want to echo all the words that have been said by just pointing out four things. First of all, this is a great bill and as bipartisan a consensus as you can imagine, or as anyone has seen around here probably in years. And I'm very, very proud of being part of that effort. Want to acknowledge the great work of everyone up here and others that Kay mentioned, and in particular my chairman on the subcommittee, Bill Nelson. Secondly, sometimes the divide between authorizers and appropriators is bigger than the party divide. There's no divide here between that, because we have consulted every step of the way with Barbara Mikulski and Richard Shelby, and they are completely on board. And I invite and welcome the White House joining this broad bipartisan consensus, and certainly hope they do, as Bill mentioned. Secondly, I've made it clear, I thought the Obama administration's announced plans in the last several months were a radical departure from everything NASA has been about, and really put at risk our leadership in space in a very fundamental way. This bill completely reverses that course, fundamentally reverses that course, and that's why it's so important. Third, it does that in three important ways. It protects the Orion crew vehicle and ensures that it's fully developed for deep space missions as intended. It includes language directing NASA to begin the refurbishment of ET-94, an external fuel tank that's particularly important to Michoud in Louisiana. And it most fundamentally requires NASA to move ahead with heavy lift launch vehicle development immediately and with a clear deadline, using existing shuttle and Constellation program parts and technology. And those are the three core items. Fourth and finally, this is very important for the nation, but also for Louisiana and the Michoud facility. Michoud was facing having its doors closed and having the facility shuttered under the new vision. And this fundamentally reverses that and protects for Michoud its historic role in the NASA program with heavy lift, which is a well-earned and well-deserved role. Thanks.
I'm really proud of everybody up here, because this is a very, very good resolution of what were really monumentally difficult problems, especially Senators Rockefeller and Hutchison and Nelson, and of course Vitter as well, and then of course my colleague Bob Bennett. All of us have worked very hard to try and resolve some of these problems, and frankly this whole group has really busted its pick to try and get to this resolution, which basically helps to preserve our system the way it should be preserved. Let me just say a few more things about this, because it's a very, very important day to those of us in Utah as well as these other folks. 6 months ago, the administration announced the cancellation of Project Constellation. To many, this was the end of an era, the end of manned space flight, and the end of civilian solid rocket motor production. However, today we are taking a major step away from the edge of what I consider to be an abyss. So what does this bill accomplish? First, it is important to remember it's not a 100% solution to all of the issues regarding solid rocket motor industrial, that the solid rocket motor industrial base is facing. However, included in the NASA authorization bill, which was reported out of the Senate Commerce Committee just this morning, are provisions for a new space launch system. This system will be a government-owned civil launch system developed, managed, and operated by NASA to serve as a key component in our quest to expand the human presence beyond low Earth orbit. In order to accomplish this mission, the Commerce Committee's bill has established certain requirements which the system must meet. After speaking with experts in Utah, it is their conclusion that these requirements can only be realistically accomplished by using solid rocket motors. For example, the bill requires a rocket which can lift a payload between 70 to 100 tons and to integrate that system with an upper Earth departure stage, which will bring the total lift capability of the Space Launch System to 130 tons or more. Based on these requirements, the Utah experts I've conferred with believe solid rocket motors should play a fundamental role in achieving these objectives. However, we must not get ahead of ourselves. This is only the first step in the legislative process, and nothing is final until it's signed into law. And even then, we will have to be vigilant. In addition, I'm still working on, and Senator Bennett and I are still working on resolving a technical matter with the committee. Yet for the first time in 6 months, we believe we have some really outstanding good news about the future of NASA's manned space flight program and maintaining our civilian solid rocket motor industrial base. So I just can't be complimentary enough about the folks that are standing here, and Senator Rockefeller's left, but his leadership as well. And we're very grateful to see this done in a way that really is going to keep us preeminent in the world in manned space flight. And it wouldn't have happened but for the people here.
The authorizers have spoken, and it's good news. Now the arena shifts to the Appropriations Committee, and I'm delighted to hear that Senator Mikulski and Senator Shelby have been included in these debates. I've done everything I can as a member of the Appropriations Committee, as has Senator Hutchison, to make sure that the appropriators stay abreast of all of these developments. Because if we don't see to it that the Appropriations Committee follows up with the direction of preserving the solid rocket industrial base, then in spite of this work, it can still disappear. But it's good news to know that the appropriate appropriations people are on board with this. And Senator Hutchison and I, along with Senator Shelby and Senator Cochran and others, are working with the Democrats who have been open, again, in the spirit of bipartisanship, to see to it that we do not destroy the capacity of NASA to go into deep space with manned space flight. And no matter how you try to create it, you cannot get the capacity to go in that direction without solid rocket motors. They are the ones that have the heavy lift capacity, which this bill preserves, and which we will now work in the Appropriations Committee to make sure stays funded. And it is for that reason I join with my colleagues in congratulating the authorizers for what they've done and pledging that the appropriators will do the very best we can to follow it up and see that this thing survives.
I think Bill and I would take any questions, or for anyone else on the podium.
Mark Matthews, Orlando Sentinel.
Thank you, Senator. What is going to prevent everyone from coming back to this room 4 years from now and talking about a new rocket, a new compromise? From what I see, what this does is that it does everything the Augustine Commission recommended against. It creates a new rocket that's underfunded on a tight schedule with an undefined mission.
My, oh my, do you have a positive question?
Take that after you.
Please. First of all, the premise of your question is faulty. What this does is set up a new heavy lift vehicle on a deadline of December 31st, 2016, and that is achievable because of the policy that has been set by the committee. The committee cannot tell NASA how to design a rocket, but we can give policy direction to the executive branch of government, and we've done that in the bill, utilizing shuttle-derived technology, building on that, making it evolvable, not building the largest rocket around, but starting in the range of 75 to 100 metric tons, that is evolvable, and that would be built over the course of those 6 years within a budget of $11.5 billion. Now that is doable. And if anybody tells you that it's not, then if I were you, I would question their particular agenda. But of course, there were many different interests to be considered here. It was not only that the policy of the committee was that we wanted to start now on the heavy lift instead of waiting 5 years. And remember, the president's speech at the Kennedy Space Center said 2015 or earlier. So that's what we've done in setting the policy in this bill. We're starting earlier. It still preserves what we think will be an exciting new commercial venture. And you think of all the commercial companies that are going to compete for commercial crew to and from the space station. And some of them boldly have said that we can do this, they say, within 3 years. Well, we'll see as NASA goes through the competition and does the down select. But you will see rocket manufacturers, like the manufacturers of the very tried and true Delta IV and the Atlas V, that have been so remarkable in their capability, be in competition with newer companies such as SpaceX and Orbital Sciences and a whole host of others that will be competing. And out of that, then we will get the best and most efficient for the space taxi service for cargo that's already under contract, and for crew that will be down selected and decided in the future. And then additionally, this bill provides for an additional flight of the space shuttle. That is important because as we complete the space station, we need more supplies and more equipment taken up. There is a shuttle that's already ready to go. It is the one that sits on the second pad for the next 2 launches. It's called Launch on Need. It is the rescue shuttle were one of the others to get marooned. And it's in the opinion of the experts that the risk is minimal to the last flight of that Launch on Need shuttle. Because if something happened like Columbia, that it had a hole in its wing as a result of falling debris on ascent, that the crew would be able to take refuge in the International Space Station until they could be rescued. So for a whole host of reasons, we kept the robust science proposal of the president. We kept the robust aeronautics proposal. We kept the research and development of new technologies that in a separate and also will be folded into the development of the new heavy lift vehicle. And all of it came together in the consensus that we have described.
I would just add that I read the Augustine report a little differently from you. I think we have certainly met the test of the Augustine report, except in one respect. I agree with the Augustine report, but we haven't had a fully funded space program in the last 20 years, maybe more. I wish that we could fully fund the space program and we could shorten the gap. But that was not an option, particularly in these times. And we have met the Augustine requirements, I think, in a much stronger way than had we gone with the president's plan without the congressional input. We have a much better chance in 4 years of not coming back and saying that we need something different than if we had not kept the expertise that we already have, the investment that we have already made, and going forward, we are going to shorten the gap, and through the use of the technology and investment and expertise that we have already invested in, we are going to have the fully capable space exploration vehicle that will take humans into low Earth orbit and beyond. We are going to do it in a more efficient way, and I'm very proud of this product, and I think we have minimized risk, and we are making the gap in our capabilities to put people in space on our own by at least 5 years, in my opinion.
Yes.
Melina Cruz, representing KT
Chair Kate, this is for Senator Hutchinson. What does the passage of this bill mean for Houston?
It's very important for the Command and Control Center at Houston and for the workforce in Houston because we will keep the the position with Marshall of being the leader in our command and control, the astronaut training, and in addition, doing the work on the space module that is going to be put in place immediately rather than waiting until 2015 to see where we go from here. We are going to fully utilize outside contractors. The commercial sector is going to be much more a part of our plans than ever before. And many of those experts are in the NASA headquarters, the Johnson headquarters in Houston. I think under the original plan, Houston would have been denigrated to a very small supportive role. Now they will have their rightful role, which they have had in the past, along with the many other experts in Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida, in addition to California and Utah. So I think that we have come to, by far, the best conclusion for America, and most certainly for the expertise that we have had with Houston's leadership at Johnson Space Center.
I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah, I want to respond with regard to Florida. The question hadn't been asked about Florida. The acceleration of the heavy lift vehicle will cause an additional 2,000 jobs to be saved at the Kennedy Space Center. With the acceleration of the commercial launch development that is going on concurrently and will be next door at the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, that will cause an additional minimum of 1,000 jobs. So the terrible trauma that the Kennedy Space Center was facing with the loss of all the jobs because of the shutdown of the space shuttle, that shuttle will be flown longer. It'll be flown into next year, about a year from now. And the transition down will be much more gentle. And therefore, with what I've just outlined between the heavy lift and the commercial, the increase of the jobs will be much more accelerated.
Last question, everyone.
I think there are two people who've tried, so let's take both of them.
Can you talk about what this will mean for the solid and liquid rocket motor industrial bases and how it addresses concerns about rising costs at the Pentagon and other changes in constellation?
Well, yes. No, it's not going to affect the budget at the Pentagon because the aeronautical has been preserved, but in its normal and rightful place. It does preserve the industrial base of the liquid motor as well as the what was the second part? Solid and liquid. It does preserve. I would say, if you're synthesizing this whole bill, preserving the expertise in which we've already invested and building on what had already been done for the Constellation as well as all the past shuttles building is a major part of the policy that we're setting here. And I think we're going to be working hand in glove with the commercial sector. I'm sure there will be a lot of back and forth, but the liquid and solid motor, I think, is part of that strategy and policy.
May I add something there?
Sure.
Specifically to your question, almost 70% of the entire solid rocket motor production for the United States government is done by NASA. Needless to say, there is great angst in the Department of Defense that production line would be shut down and therefore according layoffs in the shutdown of that production capability. The Department of Defense, both the Air Force and the Navy, are absolutely reliant on a healthy solid rocket motor industry, particularly with regard to the D5, which is the Trident missile for the Navy, as well as the rockets in the silo for the United States Air Force. And if for no other reason, there was great angst among the comptroller types in the Department of Defense on the significant increased cost to DoD, if close to 70% of the production capability was being shut down. So for further information on this, you just need to refer it to the Department of Defense. And yet what I have just told you is, in fact, what has been going on over there.
Last question.
Thanks so much. So you both have talked a lot about how far you've come since the White House put out its version of the NASA authorization, and how closely the entire committee has worked together on coming up with a compromise. How has your relationship been with the White House on this NASA authorization as you reach the closing stages? How would you characterize that? How closely did you guys work with them, or did you work with them at all?
Well, Kay and I have two personal friends. They happen to be number one and number two right now down at the White House. And I can tell you from my standpoint that I know President Obama is an enthusiast of the manned spaceflight, is an enthusiastic supporter of the manned spaceflight program. But in the way that his budget for NASA was rolled out back in February, it gave the perception that he was killing the manned space program by the use of the word canceling the Constellation program. Well, if they had used a different word, that they were going to restructure the Constellation program, it would have had a whole different atmosphere. But what was done was done. So in the process of the president wanting to break out with a new industry that he thinks will be a lot cheaper, and it has that capability of human spaceflight, but for purposes of going to and from the space station, now so that we can utilize this $100 billion investment that we have. It caused a great deal of angst, and different people felt different things about where we were going. That's what I was referring to in my opening comments when I said a few weeks ago centrifugal force was at play and was about to blow everything apart. The White House, then, to specifically answer the last part of your question, the White House has been magnificent about this. The president has given the direction. The White House has gotten directly in encouraging the development of the consensus, and you will see by the statement issued today the White House official good housekeeping seal of approval in supporting this consensus.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.